Everyone, Sigil here. We are back with our third pair of characters at level 5, and it is time to eliminate someone. I've said in the other videos, but just in case there's someone watching who hasn't seen the other videos, I know that level 5 is very early in an Everquest character's timeline, but what I found is it has definitely allowed me enough time to develop the start of a story around that character and kind of really get to know their persona, even if I haven't seen all of the class mechanics yet. So in this round, we have two very unique characters to look at, and both were a hell of a lot of fun to play. We'll be talking about Darendrel, the Dark Elf Cleric, who was once a king and has been blessed or cursed to be reborn again and again into the world as something new each time. And on the other side, we'll be looking at Zehris, the too smart for his own good Erudite Enchanter who has been awakened. He knows he's a character in a video game, and he knows he's being recorded for YouTube, and he wants some control of his own destiny. So we'll compare each of them in our 5 categories, and we'll pick a winner to move on to the next round. We don't know who they'll be up against in the next round because the winner of that pair has not yet been sorted out. We'll see them in forthcoming videos. So as usual, the first 4 categories are based entirely on my own opinion after having played the characters and thinking about where they might go in the future. The last category is the audience vote, which is up on YouTube. So what we're going to do is put them all up on the screen, discuss them for each character. We'll pick a winner in each category and then a winner for overall and see who moves on to the next round. I am excited to get started, so let's get to it. All right, so we are going to look at race fantasy, class fantasy, the starting zone for each character, the persona that I created for each character, and then we are going to look at the community vote as a potential tiebreaker. Alright, so let's talk about race fantasy. So in the past, what I've done in these categories is gone through and kind of cataloged or highlighted all of the racial abilities and talked a little bit about how they compare, and I'll do a little of that here, but really I wanted to talk more about my own opinion on the races. So with Darendrel, being a dark elf, he has a couple of racial abilities that I think really add to my gameplay and how much I enjoyed the character. The first is the high starting wisdom that Dark Elves get. This is great for a cleric because, as we all know, for a caster or a healer, mana is king. If we can't cast spells, then really we can't even play the character. The more mana we have, the longer we can go without sitting and twiddling our thumbs or maybe watching more Sigil GM YouTube videos while we meditate. The second thing they have is Ultra Vision. The ability to see in the dark is one of those things that you really don't even notice when you're playing a Dark Elf, but you absolutely feel it is missing when you play any race without some kind of night vision. So beyond racial abilities, Dark Elves start in Neriak, which is a great starting city. Very thematic, super cool looking, with a real sinister aesthetic. It's close to Eastern Commonlands, which has a lot of advantages. With the teleport firepots available on Quarm, Neriak also has a teleport firepot going to the Lesser Feydark, which puts you right in great range of Unrest, Mistmore, things like that for that level range. You know, generally speaking, in RPGs, it can be a ton of fun to play as an evil character if it's done well. For me, in most fiction, Dark Elves or Drow or whatever you have, depending on the IP you're playing in, just super lore rich, make excellent evil villains, but they can also have a really cool option of a great redemption arc. Appearance-wise, in classic Everquest, Dark Elves just plain look good. They're undoubtedly the best looking non-ogre race in the game. Cool, unique armor appearance. I love those plate helms with the little devil horns on them. It's amazing. Now on the downside, Dark Elves have all the usual issues that you have with playing an evil race, such as access to areas, people hating on your awesomeness, but you know, honestly, that's really just part of the fun. Now on the other side, with Zehris being an Erudite, there are a couple of racial abilities I'll also mention here. First of all, being an Erudite, he has the highest possible starting intelligence in the game. Those big craniums hold big brains. And once again, same argument here, mana is king. Larger mana pool, more spells. If you can't cast, you can't fight. The other one is that Erudites start with 25 magic resist. This is one of those like quiet advantages that you really only notice when you don't have it. It'll make a difference in places like Guck or Soul B with things like charms and roots, fears and stuns. Again, not something we're going to notice every day while we're out adventuring, but it will make a difference. Starting city, Iridan is kind of interesting with its teleports and just overall calm, scholarly magic feels. The downside is that it really feels like it's isolated and so far from everything, even though Kanos is actually not that long of a trip. Appearance-wise, Erudites have a super unique thing in that they get to wear hoods instead of helmets, which is very stylish in its own right. In looking at fantasy fiction in general, Erudites fall into that category maybe of the really smart human civilization that sometimes existed centuries ago and blew themselves up, or exist today and are a mysterious empire or what have you. Within Everquest, they have a ton of lore that can make for awesome roleplay opportunities. You could have everything from an absent-minded bookworm to a cruel elitist to a, well, actually, grammar Nazi that corrects everyone. Just, don't do this one. We're not going to do that. I try to take a unique turn on the super smart idea and have him kind of become truly awakened and aware of his own circumstances. On the downside, Erudites have that low starting strength, similar to what we talked about when I was playing Valerian, the High Elf. This means you can get overloaded pretty quickly, especially in the early game, and just requires more inventory control. It's not a huge deal, it's just kind of a minor annoyance. Alright, so overall, both races have some really good racial abilities that I think affect my gameplay and that I enjoy. Both races have unique style and great lore and have tons of roleplay options and opportunities. So this is a pretty hard choice, but for me, I just love the sinister villainy of Dark Elves, so I'm going to give this one to Darendrel. Okay, so let's talk about class fantasy. I'll start with Darendrel and talk about clerics. So first of all, I have to say that I don't play healers very often in any MMO. This should be an interesting experiment. Obviously, I haven't had to do much healing yet, but if he sticks around, then I will definitely get my fill of that role. The good thing is, clerics are the best healers in the game, and every group wants and or needs a cleric. They bring fast heals, heals over time, group heals, and of course, complete heal once you get to level 39. There's just no other class that can consistently and efficiently heal like a cleric. This ends up making them the backbone of any group or raid that they're in, and this is great because I don't plan on playing solo all the way through. I mean, that would go against the main reason I even play MMORPGs. My YouTube channel's description even says social gaming, so I will be looking to group at some point. So clerics bring powerful buffs, whether that's armor class, hit points, resistance, stamina. They just make every group stronger, safer, and more efficient. And it feels good because you can directly see the impact you're having on a team. Of course, I have to mention Clerics bring Resurrection, which is possibly the most valuable spell in classic Everquest. It can save you hours of grinding by restoring your lost hit points when you die. When things go wrong, the Cleric is just everyone's best friend. It's just awesome. I've had Clerics just help me in the past without me even asking them, and it's actually changed my entire mood for that play session and maybe for the rest of the day. Having the ability to be an important part of the community and just and make that difference for people is just huge for me. Of course, with clerics, you do have some potential downsides. They're not great at soloing, although they are pretty strong. They have good hit points and they can wear plate armor, so they're pretty dependably strong, but don't do a ton of damage. Well, the exception will be if you're fighting undead, because they do have some great undead damage spells. They're fairly mana dependent, so if you are out soloing, you can have a pretty long downtime between fights if you're not being efficient, and that's also even true grouping. If the group isn't running very efficiently, you can have a lot of downtime. And from what some people say, and I think this is more of just a healing mindset, is that they just feel like they're a heal bot. Basically in EverQuest, since they're trying to save mana, they just stand up, heal, sit down. But I will say, having played a wizard back years ago in live EverQuest, that's the same thing a wizard does. And I played that for years, and I liked it because I like to chat with others, so I think I'll be just fine. Now on the other side, we've got Zehris, the Enchanter. So all right, look, the reality is, for Enchanters in classic EverQuest, it's not just good. If it's played well, it's not just good, it's pretty much god tier. There are a lot of longtime players, myself included, that just consider Enchanters to be maybe the strongest, most versatile class in the entire game, especially in classic era. I saw Enchanters back in the day do things, made pools possible that I just thought we were completely done. Enchanters just bring so much to a group. Everyone is always happy to see an Enchanter join the team. So obviously we know they're kind of kings of crowd control. They can, like I just said, can turn the chaotic pools into these manageable fights. For solo, they can solo multiple enemies if they can kind of control the flow of combat. And no other class just handles that kind of chaos or manages to spin something out of a mess like an Enchanter can do. It can be a hectic challenge, but I can only imagine, having never played one at high levels, how awesome it must feel when you pull it off and you do it well. Cool thing Enchanters get is they can charm monsters as pets, and I think that's amazing. I've seen so many charm pets just come along and hit like a truck, and they're able to tank or off-tank pools. It's amazing. Obviously, it's a super dangerous game because if they break charm, you are what is for lunch and they're coming for you. But just like I was saying with crowd control, it must feel just like an art form to really pull off well and be able to perform that kind of dance. Like I said, everyone, happy to see an Enchanter join the team. They just make everyone else stronger. Your melee DPS are going to be your best friend for some haste. Healers and casters will adopt you into their family for some mana regen because mana is king. All the casters are going to buy you a dinner, the steak dinner for always lowering mob magic resistance with the Tash line. Poolers and tanks will love you for using your lulls or pacifies or memory blurs so you can split pools and things like that. It just really has something for everybody. I mean, they've got even more cool stuff beyond that, but it's really just icing on the cake at that point. Everybody wants an enchanter. So when I talked before about being able to get into groups and be a part and make a difference, when in a group, an enchanter is it's hard to beat for someone who can make a difference in everybody's day. They do have a few trade-offs, much like the Cleric. So in Enchanter's case, they don't wear plate armor. They don't have high hit points. They have low hit points, low defense. They're kind of fragile. And if you make mistakes, they are costly mistakes. It's very much a high-risk, high-reward class. You can easily be killed by your own charmed pet or losing control of your mesmerizes. I think overall, for speaking in Everquest terms, they have a pretty high skill cap. It's pretty easy to be kind of mediocre or mid-level Enchanter, but it can be really hard to be great at it. You really have to understand what your options are. So overall, both of these classes are super group friendly, extremely group friendly. Both have the ability to turn the tide of battle and save the group in almost any situation. And even though I would be interested in exploring healing in Everquest, I think the challenge of becoming an excellent Enchanter is more appealing and sounds more rewarding in the end. So I'm going to say Zehris takes this one. All right, let's talk about starting zone, and I will say this is going to be a quick one. I'll start with Nectulos Forest. So Nectulos Forest is one of my favorite starting zones in the entire game. I think Nectulos Forest itself has a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of different mobs you can fight, just a cool layout, and the darkness really fits with the whole Dark Elf theme being right next to Neriak, which is a great starting city. And then as soon as you outlevel that, you can head over to the Eastern Commonlands, which is just amazing for getting buffs or just talking to people, engaging with people while still having a lot of things to continue to grind on to level up from there. Just overall, I just love Nectulos Forest. Now, on the other hand, I can't stand Toxulia Forest. To me, Toxulia just feels like a zone that they kind of started to throw some things together, but they never really finished. And maybe that's not fair to the zone, but I just really don't like it. You're playing a race that doesn't start with any kind of dark vision, and they put them in a very dark forest, which means everything just looks, you can only see like 50 feet in any direction, and there's not a lot going on. It feels like it's so far away from everything else in the world, even though really Kanos isn't that far away. Just a boat ride basically to get over there, but I just don't like it. I didn't like it a long time ago when I played, and I don't like it now. So this is an easy one. It's going to go to Darendrel and Nectulos Forest. All right, let's talk about personas. So we'll start with Darendrel the Immortal. Cursed by Inuruk to be reborn over and over again and to spread malice and spite in the world. I had so much fun making this video. The writing, the gameplay, the voiceover, it was all great. I wanted to write like little musical stories for him to tell throughout his adventure, but I wanted them to be a little absurd, and it turned out they kind of became more of a poem format, but I was just amused by all of them and tried to make them very Everquest. I also wanted to show the tinge of madness that was in Darendrel with the naming of his gear and such. Just a super fun experiment overall. There's a lot left to his story as he rises in power with his goal to actually kill Inuruk once and for all and free himself from this curse, and it would be really neat to explore that. On the other side, we have Zehris the Awakened. He's so intelligent that he puzzles out that his world has oddities and that something bigger is going on. Eventually, he realizes he's a video game character in a fictitious world, and he actually makes contact with me, his creator and player. I have been looking forward to this one for a really long time. Back when I was first starting this whole journey, I looked at this race-class combination, and I had the thought of having an Erudite that kind of breaks the fourth wall because he's so smart. I'm not sure I nailed it, but it was incredibly fun to put together. I think there might be a better way to represent me in the videos, but I'll think on it, and maybe it'll evolve as time goes on if we keep going. But as far as Zehris goes, what a fun writing challenge, and something I haven't ever roleplayed in the past. And kind of one thing I've been thinking about is in the future, how would he interact with other PCs being played by other players? It could get really interesting, and I would definitely be looking forward to the challenge of that. So this one is such a hard choice. I absolutely adore both of these characters. They're both very interesting, both very unique, both pose a fun challenge in the writing and the voice acting. Overall, I think the the challenges involved in writing the rest of Zehris' fourth wall-breaking adventure is just too interesting to pass up. So I'm going to give Persona to Zehris, but I will say this is maybe the hardest decision I've had to make in this series yet on any of the eliminations. All right, so that leaves us with a tie going into our last category, which is the community vote. We'll take a look here. Looks like you all agreed that it'd be really neat to see some more Zehris. So 80% of the vote was for Zehris. So Zehris wins the community vote, and that means Zehris wins overall, and we'll be moving on to the next round. So with that, Darendrel, the Dark Elf Cleric, is eliminated, and Zehris, the Erudite Enchanter, moves on to the next round. We're not sure who he's going to be up against yet. We have Theodar, the Dwarf Paladin, versus Fendrel, the Wood Elf Ranger, and I'll be introducing you to both of them very soon. If you're enjoying the series so far and you would like to be alerted when the next one comes out, go ahead and do a little magic on those YouTube buttons so you get the alert, and I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.
Level up, let's rise and play. Through the night and into the day. From the pixels to the stars above. Gaming together with